Hey everybody, welcome back. So today what we're going to be doing is covering the first lab, and I'm going to basically walk you through the process just so that you can become familiar with it. Pretty straightforward demo. Basically what we'll be doing is we'll be setting up our accounts for Google Cloud. You'll be setting up a billing account and a project. Short summary is that the billing account is what you are being charged to. The project are all of the things that you can be charged for. So all of your virtual machines, all your cloud functions, all of your pub sub applications, everything we're going to be doing will be in a project. That project is going to charge to a billing account. And we're setting up the project and billing account here. So what we've got going on, if you go to the introduction post, so it's basically the first module, at the very bottom you have your lab. There should be links all over Blackboard, in the front matter for the page listing as well for this. But it's going to take you to a code lab that I've created for this. And if you've never heard of Code Labs before, I highly recommend you check out codelabs.developers.google.com. Basically, this lists out all of the free Code Labs that are available for you using any kind of Google Cloud product, not just GCP, but Android development, TensorFlow, pretty much anything that you could want to do. People have created Code Labs for, and they're all kind of neat. They walk you through some of the various things that are out there. Basically, this is more of a, if you're interested, check it out. But what we're going to be doing here is, this needs to be updated. Sorry about that. We're going to be creating our account. So you should all have received an email from me with a Google Cloud coupon. And that's going to walk you through a process of like click here to redeem, enter your email address to verify the account, and then you'll be taken to a coupon. And what you're going to see is a page that should look kind of like this. Now, I've gone through this process multiple times already, so my screen might be missing some of the like drop downs with product trials and all kinds of fun stuff like that. But it should look reasonably similar to this. And this is where you're basically going to apply that credit to your account. Now, it'll ask you for your name. It'll ask you for the email that you are tying it towards in the coupon code. And if this is not pre-populated, just copy and paste it. The thing to keep in mind here is that when you're redeeming these coupons, make sure that you're redeeming it to the correct account. Now, GVSU has everything enabled okay, so you can redeem them to your mail.gvsu.email account. That's fine. You can also redeem these to a personal account. That should be fine as well. So if you have an @gmail.com address, just the thing to keep in mind is that once you do that, that's what you're tying yourself to for this semester because that's where the credits will live. If you redeem them to your personal account, you'll see that, here in the top right corner with your profile icon, that's where the credits will be. So if you can't find them, either ask me, through Discord or email or office hours, or just check to see if you have it in a different account. And we'll touch on how you can do that later. One other thing to note here too is that you may see your free trial is waiting banner at the top. So you might have like a little banner drop down. Dismiss it. We do not want to activate the free trial for this course because you have free credits, right? So you don't want to burn through that if you want to use it later on. Once you're done with this class, once these credits are all used up, then by all means enable the free trial, use that, but don't pay for anything in this course that you don't need to. All right, so here what we're doing is we're creating that billing account. And by default, it will also create a project. And it's going to say like my first project or something like that. Yeah, it's going to be my first project. And then you're going to get to a screen that looks like this. It's not always going to look like this once we get into things. Your screen's going to look a bit different. This kind of large banner will go away and you're going to get a different interface. But kind of what you'll be getting towards is something that looks like this screen eventually. Right, so I've already gone ahead and I redeemed the credits. I renamed my project, and that's everything that you'll be doing here in the Code Lab. But things to consider here is that if you click the hamburger menu here on the left, you see all of the various products categorized that are available to you, right? You can also search for everything. So let's say I want to create a virtual machine. I could type virtual machine, and it's going to take me to VM instances right away. We know, or we will know, that that's in the compute engine. So I can just type compute, and it's going to pull up everything that matches compute. So compute engine's where we would want later on in this lab. Things to consider basically just it's very easy to find things in Google Cloud. It's either going to be here on your homepage, right? So you have a bunch of cards with the various things you can do, billing, um, what's going on with your compute engine, project information, resources. But your first stop is either going to be the search bar or this menu on the left to find things, right? So I'm going to assume that you can all redeem coupons, that you can, get that set up. No worries. So we're going to get through here. Other things to consider, I guess, which are useful. Um, this little icon here, so it's the right arrow and underscore. This is your cloud shell. It's basically a bash type of Linux environment. We'll be getting into that later on. If you like doing things in the terminal, you're going to probably really enjoy that. We also have help. And then this number here in a circle, this is going to be your status. So anytime you do something in Google Cloud, you're creating things, turning them on, stopping them, deleting them, the information will pop up here, and it's going to tell you if it's in progress, if it's errored out, if it's stuck, if it's okay. Basically, this is your status bar here. It's your notifications. And if nothing's happening, you just get a little bell. Right, so first thing that we're going to do that I'm going to help walk you through here is let's update the project. So again, you get my first project by default. You can create multiple projects if you want here, right? So I can create a new project, for instance, and it would be named by default my project 71188. Just picks a unique ID here, right? So if I call this CIS680 project 2, I can create this, right now. It gets tied to a billing account, which is going to be what you created with that $50 free in credits that you got from me by email. Organization, we're not going to worry about because we are not in a basically production environment where we have a nice organization of all of our resources. We just have no organization for this. That's what you would do if you wanted to create a new project. Now, if we want to go ahead and update this project, right, so I can go to project settings, right, so I basically just went to my home page here. I did like 3 or 4 clicks to just take me back to where I was. So let's go to project settings. And here is what is basically the first real thing you'll be doing. So let's rename our project, right? So what I wanted you to do was to rename it to, let's see, your last name, 680 Cloud App Dev. Right, so I'm going to copy this. So this would be, say, Fredericks dash that. And then if I just click save, it's going to go ahead and rename it for me. So we can do that right now. Right, so it renamed. We see the name changed up here. Life is good. We have a custom project that is easy to remember. And the reason why I want you to stick your last names on there is that you're all going to give me access to your project so that I can help troubleshoot for you. And it's going to be a lot easier for me if I can see your last name. Otherwise, everybody's is going to look exactly the same, and it's going to be a massive headache to figure out whose is whose. All right, easy enough. Next thing, let's create a virtual machine. So we are going to create a free tier VM. This is the one you can always leave on. You don't have to worry about. So what we need to do for this is we need to go to the compute engine. So compute engine is basically where virtual machines are hosted in Google Cloud. Again, we can get to it multiple ways. I've already created one, so I could click Resources Compute Engine. I can also search for it. Compute Engine, hamburger menu, scroll down, Compute Engine, right? So multiple ways to find things. So let's just go ahead and click Compute Engine. And we see that I already have an instance created, demo for class already existing, but we'll walk through a new one here as well. So let's create a new instance. So I'm going to click this little icon. When you are doing this for the first time, you would see a screen that looks kind of, looks kind of like this. Right, so it's going to give you the option to create something by default. So you would just click that. Since I already have one, I have to click this Create Instance button here. And I should mention too, the first time that you visit this page, it's going to need to start the API because, again, it's not enabled by default. So first time you visit here, you'll probably have to wait like 5 or 10 minutes for it to initialize itself. Okay, so what are we caring about here with creating things? We're using a micro instance, so we're going to name it appropriately. So let's change this to CIS680 micro instance 1. We'll worry about labels later on. We see right now this is going to cost us about 25 bucks a month. We're going to trim that back. So first things first, region. The free tier regions have changed over time. We are in the East region, so we're the closest to US East. US East 1 is one of the free ones. US Central 1 is another free one. Check that free tier page if you want clarification on which regions and which configuration settings are free here. But this is where we're going to stay as US East 1. Okay, so now the tricky parts. So we're going to not necessarily care too much about all these specific options. What we care about is that we select this E2 micro instance. So this gives us 2 virtual CPUs and 1 gig of RAM. Again, tiny little computer, right? But this is one that we can leave on effectively forever. All right, so we don't care about confidential VMs, we don't care about containers. But what we are going to do is we're going to pick the operating system. So I'm going to choose Ubuntu. If you don't want to use Ubuntu, use whatever flavor of operating system you prefer. Just keep in mind it has to be a Linux-based OS because Windows isn't going to be in the free tier. All right, so I like Ubuntu 20. You could use Debian or CentOS, whatever your particular flavor of Linux choice is that you want. All right, for the free tier, we get 30 gigs of hard drive space for free. Images, snapshots, existing disks, don't have to worry about. Basically, that's if you want to start deploying this on a larger scale. So we've got our VM configured with the OS we want and the size. Since this is going to be a web server, I want to allow HTTP and HTTPS traffic, meaning that the firewall on Google's side, and the firewall is something we'll talk about later, it won't block that traffic. The quick overview is that there is an internal firewall in each virtual machine, standard firewall that you get with Windows or Linux or whatever you have. There's also another layer of firewall on Google Cloud side, which you have to play with as well. So now we see we've gone up to or down to $7 approximately per month. So that should be about where we want to be for this. So click create. It's creating our instance. And yeah, there we go. So this will probably take a few minutes to get up and running. I'll probably cut this right here. Jump cut. All right, so here we have our new micro instance. We see the zone it is in, and we see some other things as well. If you look at the code lab, you will see basically all of those things that I talked about. Things to note. So green check mark, it is up and running. If you see a little grayed out stop icon, it is shut off and not consuming any resources. That's the state you want to be in if it is not free, right? We also see an internal and an external IP. These are mentioned in the lab. Internal is used internal to Google Cloud. External is what the rest of the world sees. SSH is how we're going to talk to it. So I'm going to pop this open here. And then this is also going to take a minute. Basically, it's going to use SSH to remote into the machine. If you've ever used something like PuTTY or SSH or MOBA Xterm or basically any kind of remote terminal software, this should be familiar. But here we're in a Linux environment. So more details are in the lab. But basically, if I want to make things bigger, if I want to upload or download files, put the font, you click the little gear icon here. Let's make this large. So standard Ubuntu terminal, nothing too crazy. You see your username here, see the machine name, and then we have our terminal. So we've created a VM. Good job. Last two things. We're going to set up a web server. So basically, we're just going to install Apache, and you can do whatever you want with that. You're probably going to be putting some, various project-related things up here at some point, but easy task to do. All right, so again, I'm using Ubuntu, so if you picked something else, you have to translate these commands to that flavor of Linux. So let's clear this out. Sudo apt install Apache 2. Enter. Do you want to install this? Yes. I just hit enter again. All right, so it is installing Apache, running through everything we need to do. We want this to be enabled when we reboot. So we have sudo and apt install Apache 2. Again, if you don't know Linux, that's fine. I'm breaking down all the commands here for you. And if this is still a bit out of your reach, please do not hesitate to ask me because I'm not expecting you to know Linux. Mainly, I want to give you a quick and dirty intro to it. So install Apache. We also want it to run if we reboot this machine. It's probably not going to do that by default. So sudo system control, so systemctl, enable Apache 2. What this is going to do is it will tell Linux to run Apache as one of the startup services. May have been done automatically with apt in Ubuntu 20, but I like to do it just in case. Okay, so that's all we need to do to get a web server running. All right, so if we go back to our cloud homepage, the external IP is what we care about. So the one thing to note is this will change over time. You know, every time you reboot your machine, it may get a new IP address. So bear that in mind if you're running a web server. I'm fairly certain you have to pay if you want a static IP address. I am not going to do that, so I'm just going to go ahead and click this. Now I'm going to click this and two things are going to happen here. One, it's going to go to an HTTPS website, which is the default behavior for clicking these links in Google Cloud. We don't have secured websites set up, so it should redirect. If it does not, just go to your URL and remove the S. So it should be HTTP, then your website URL. Again, yours is going to be different than mine here. But this is what you should see. We have a web server running at this web address. This is going to be outside the scope of the video, or outside the scope of the lab, but if I wanted to update things, I could go to the HTML directory. So cd change directory, var www.html. This is where Apache lives on Ubuntu. And if I sudo, I'm going to use Vim. Use whatever text editor you like. Nano, Emacs, Joe, whatever your preference is if you're in this world. Index.html. And I can get rid of all of this HTML. Body. Hello there. Ugliest website I've ever made. Oh, let's make it a little bit nicer. Give it an H1 tag. Okay. Save it. I can refresh this now. Hey, change my website. Cool. None of this is in the lab manual. You don't have to do it. I was more demonstrating that we have a working website. But this is the boilerplate template page that shows you that Apache is working. Good job. Last but not least, you have to add me to your account. So what you're doing here and why this is important is that this allows me to troubleshoot when things go wrong. Basically, you're giving me access to your project. And by giving me owner access, I have the power to do whatever I want. Since I'm your professor, that is fine. Consider me your technical expert role in your company if you want. Basically, I can go into all of your settings and make sure everything's okay. Do not give this to anybody that does not need it, though, because you don't want other people to have detailed, fine-grained access to your account, right? It's fine for class, but once we're done in class, you don't want me in here. You don't want other people mucking about that don't need to have this access. So just be very careful with this. So this is in the IAM page. So let's go back to Google Cloud. I'm actually going to go ahead and stop this instance since I don't need it anymore for me. You all need it, but I don't see that things are happening. So I'm going to search for IAM. So IAM in admin. and this is going to be the project permissions, right? So if you look here, what you need to do is click the plus add button icon, whatever we're going to call this, probably a button. What you want to do is add me. So put my GVSU email in there, and then give me, that's, again, if you are not a part of Grand Valley, I'm not going to accept your request, just if you stumble across this. But you want to give me project ownership, right? So that's going to send me an email saying, hey, so-and-so has granted you access to their project. I will accept it. And then I have carte blanche access to your account, which is fine for class again, but be very careful with who you hand this out to. So I'm going to click cancel since I already am part of it. But in big, bold font, if you skip this step, you would lose points on the lab because I'm going to have you take screenshots and all that fun stuff. But I cannot help you if you don't do this, right? I can't get into your account to see what's configured wrong. So make sure that you please do this. But other than that, that is pretty much it. So just make sure that you've checked the lab manual, copy and paste the correct screenshots in where you need them, and submit it on time. Any questions, comments, or concerns, please Discord, email, office hours, however you want to get a hold of me. But I'm more than happy to help you. So otherwise, good luck. Have fun.